Have you ever wondered why so many men are failing in their business, in their family, in their health, or they've got everything that the world can give them and yet they still want more. They're still not happy. They're still not satisfied. So in this video, I'm going to tell you why both are happening, okay? And we're going to go back to the start, back to the basics, all right? So first of all, we have to really understand in the Bible, okay, in the Bible, there are two sorts of males, two that they talk about. I only mention two, boy and man, okay, boy and man, that's it. And what's really interesting is how words have changed over the years. Buddy, dude, brother, all these cool words, which really it's all about, it describes a boy. It doesn't describe a man, okay? So I'm going to tell you exactly what a man is today, all right? What the Bible says a man is and how he acts, all right? So, for example, in the Bible, this is where it talks about, and you look at this, if you've got sons, or maybe you look at your own masculine journey, you look at this, all right? Because when it came to transitioning from boy to man, generally they were about 13 years of age in the Bible. It talks about in when Jesus was calling to he was saying, follow me, when he was saying those kind of things and seeing who would say, choose me, Lord, all the disciples were started 13 up into 15, 16 years of age. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they were only boys. They were men. They had businesses, they contributed to the community, they contributed to their families. They were men. They were stepping up. Okay, and I suppose because when it talks about in 1 Genesis 26, it actually, and this is what I want to talk about, okay, it actually gave them dominion. It actually talks about in the old word about I'm giving man dominion. And what does dominion mean? Because talked about dominion and it talked about having responsibility, everything being under him, dominion, right? Over the fish, the birds, all the living creatures, all over the earth, okay? And it said, and then God said, be fruitful and multiply once you have dominion. So if you don't have dominion, I'm going to break down dominion, okay, over the next 5 minutes or so to actually show you what dominion actually is. Because as a man, you are called to that. You are called to being more than a conqueror. You are called to being a man, okay? What is a man, okay? I'm not going to explain the whole lot, although I would love to. It's going to take too long. I'm going to do another video on what is a man, all right? But this is about man's called to have dominion. What is dominion? Dominion means, okay, if you're taking notes, dominion means it's a right, okay, the right to take on responsibility. Dominion, the right to take on responsibility, to rule, okay, to govern, okay, to manage, to steward. Okay, I'm going to break these down, all right? So what does it mean to actually rule? As a man, as a masculine man, okay? Not a boy, as a man. This is how you start to become a man, act like a man. It says you take on responsibility to rule. And even before I get into that, even thinking about my sons, okay? Even thinking about me, what my father did with me. I worked from a very young age. I took on responsibility. I helped him, okay? I got my sons to act, and my daughters, to actually help contribute I would give them responsibilities, whether it be with animals, pets, even in our different businesses we have. Take on responsibility. Give them an area to actually rule over. Remember, this is about dominion. The first thing is to actually take on responsibility and then to rule. The first thing, and particularly when you're in that transition period, because I believe as men, we're always transitioning to a greater level, to bear more fruit. Remember, we're called to bear fruit and multiply. So I always should be looking to bear more fruit. So we should all be transitioning all the time. But this is a basic thing that we need, okay? Because if you don't have this dominion, this is what it looks like in the modern world. It looks like maybe your early 20s. Maybe your late 20s, maybe your mid-30s, you're sitting on your mother's couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix, gaming, or something that you're just isolated sitting on your mum's couch. That's what it could like. And this may be a poke in the chest for somebody. Take it like a man, swallow it, and let's get on with it, all right? So the first thing when it comes to ruling is you must be disciplined. You must have self-discipline. What is self-discipline? You give yourself a command and you follow through. I remember seeing a definition of success, and it said basically you commit until completion. You follow through until it's completed. So you give yourself a command and you follow through. That's how you'll be successful in your discipline, okay? So you discipline yourself, okay? You give yourself a command, a direction. How many boys I know that are they're in men's bodies, but they can't stick to anything. They can't. So then, of course, you have no ability to actually rule over and see something through, okay? If this is too harsh, it's because you're not a man, okay? If you feel like this is too harsh, you really need to pay close attention to what I'm saying, okay? You might have to listen to this a few times. Hey, we're all on this journey. We've all started from a different playing field, but I'm going back to the Bible, to the truth. He gives us dominion. If you don't have dominion, listen to this. The first thing is you must rule, okay? It's giving you dominion to rule. So until you rule yourself, you're not going to be able to rule a business, a family, an organization, a community. We must be led and we must lead others as men. In my Rite of Passage book, I talk about that. About we need 3 groups of men. We must receive from somebody. We must have mates on the same page for that camaraderie, right? But there must be a leader, you understand. And we must be helping others, serving others. We must have rule over certain things, but it starts with ourselves, okay? The second thing is about governing, okay? We must govern, all right? What does that look like? When we're governing, whether it be our family, our business, ourselves, I think to simplify is that we set standards. We actually set standards to govern ourselves, to live by, okay? So standards around language, standards around behavior, standards around our environment, the company of people, our community that we live with. So we set standards. That's how we actually govern. I'm sure you've been in an environment where people are not living by the standards you live by. Yeah, it can be very uncomfortable. And I'm going to tell you that a big portion is how you actually really. They talk about be fruitful and multiply. That's a big one. If you cannot govern your environment, if you cannot govern your tongue, which creates environment, if you cannot govern your behavior, you're going to be at the mercy of Satan. There you go. You're going to be at the mercy of other people that don't have your standards, all right? Remember, this is about dominion, okay? Being a ruler, governing, and then it talks about managing. How do you manage? And management means to oversee a culture. To oversee, we've been given that ability to oversee, to actually oversee what has actually been entrusted to us. As fathers, as husbands, as leaders, what has been entrusted to us, our family. This may be the first time you've heard this. Your children are not yours. You're purely just overseeing them. Their language, their behavior, you're managing them as best as you can. Obviously, they've got to live their own life. But listen to me. I've got 7 children. They're all different. Raised in the same house and they're all different. But what we must do is we must manage and oversee them. We do our best, man, to keep them out of harm's way. But some of them just need to hit the wall a few times to wake up. Leave me a comment if you know what I'm talking about. So we've to manage our environment, the people in our environment that have been entrusted to us, okay? And then when it comes to the 4th thing, okay? Or is that the 5th, all right? Dominion is about stewarding. We must steward. We're called to be stewards, okay? And this is, I think, is a good one. And kind of with our kids as well. It comes to management. They all obviously fall into each other. But you don't own anything. The money you have, it's not yours. The investments you have, it's not yours. Your house, the way you live, it's not yours. The car you drive, the stuff that you have, the material possession, none of it's yours. You just get the privilege to be able to steward them for a short period of time. That's what dominion looks like, okay? So all that stuff that you have, it all belongs to God. Man, it's not yours. Okay, that's the bottom line when it comes to steward. So I actually think it's a refreshing thing when we understand dominion, particularly when it comes to stewardship. Man, it's not yours anyway. You just get to hang on to it for a period of time and steward over it, make sure it's all good for the time that you have. When you die, it'll go to somebody else. That might be a bit of an uppercut for somebody, but that's the truth. That's the God's honest truth. So when you understand this dominion, I believe we can actually, because we're actually called to have dominion, to be fruitful and multiply. But this is the thing, and we're talking about in Genesis 1:26 through to 28, okay? But then it is around dominion. But when it gets to 29, I have to make another video on this, but when it gets to 29, then he says, because we've got dominion, we're being fruitful, we're multiplying, it says he actually gives us the herbs and the seeds that cover the earth. And what that represents is, man, seed. We can plant good seed over the whole earth. And every bit of fruit has all these fruits that we pick, right? It all has seeds in it. Every bit of fruit, it's got seed in it. So that means when you get that apple, man, there's all these seeds, you can go and plant some more. So we can continue to multiply, to be fruitful and multiply. But if you're not, this may be something that you need to look at. This may be something that I think will benefit. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And I'm going to do my very best to get back to you. And I love to answer you personally, not just my team, but me personally. So I'd love to hear from you. Listen, if you know somebody who needs to hear this, please share it with them. And if you need some help on this masculine journey, man, that's what we're about. We've got a couple of ebooks. We do Become a Better Man programs. We've got so much that we do to help people. So, gentlemen, hey, listen, I hope you got some value from this. I hope that this helps you become a better man. All right, over and out.